Hey, and welcome to our next episode of the Health Show here at Kinesiologyzone headquarters and my clinic here in Westport. My name is Siobhan Guthrie, and looking forward to sharing some more information about how you can recover from type 2 diabetes. Today is World Diabetes Day, and a staggering number of people around the world suffer from diabetes, but also a staggering number of people in Ireland suffer from diabetes, almost 226,000 people, and is something that is basically a chronic lifestyle related disease. And so it's going to be really important because that we address these lifestyle issues because many more are pre-diabetic or insulin resistant that maybe will develop into diabetes later on. So it's much better to catch these things right at the beginning. So we did a health show back in August, episode 11, and that also talked about sugar and insulin and obesity and diabetes and things like that. So if you didn't see that one, I'd recommend that you have a look at that. I didn't do any testing on that, but I am going to test for through kinesiology some of the tests that we might do to test to see whether someone was maybe struggling in that area. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below this Facebook Live. If you're watching the replay on our blog, well then do email in questions to info@kinesiologyzone.com. And I don't know how long we usually run these health shows for about half an hour. I've no idea because we're going to be doing a live demo, but we're also going to be chatting and answering your questions too, because it is something that affects a lot of people. 226,000 people in Ireland, and is also one of the conditions of uncontrolled diabetes is the impact that it has on our eyesight, on our weight, which is so related to many more conditions like heart disease, cancer, things like that. And but type 2 diabetes is also a leading cause of lower limb amputation, and that is quite a shocking statistic that there's so many. 451, I think, is the last figures for Ireland, that 451 people had a lower limb amputation directly as a result of or complication from long-term, maybe uncontrolled diabetes. So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, and while you can't change and get rid of that autoimmune disease necessarily, any of the advice that I'm giving today will be just as relevant to anyone who's looking to improve their health. Diabetes is, if you like, a symptom of maybe things going wrong in the body, and so therefore all advice is relevant. So as I said, 226,000 people, that's quite a lot of people in Ireland, and but many more will be at the pre-diabetes stage, which is insulin resistance. And if blood insulin levels have been high for years, then the cells start to ignore the insulin, and that's what and then it becomes less effective at its important job. So what insulin does is it is collecting all the glucose from the blood and or these glucose from our diet and bringing it into our cells for energy. So that's sometimes why you get a boost of energy when you eat sugar and things like that, and we tend to feel good for a while, until when we've had that sugar high, we definitely get a bit of a sugar low. And short term, that's no problem. It's like we can all enjoy a nice feeling of feeling buzzed, but it's the day in, day out, combined with stress and adrenal problems, which also plays a role in balancing our blood sugar. So we've got our pancreas, which is what produces the insulin in reaction to the sugar that we ingest. And the liver is also very involved, because the liver helps to store excess sugar, just like our muscles do. So it's stored into the body as glycogen. And sorry if I'm getting technical, but to understand that it's not just about the pancreas, it's also about the liver And it's also then about adrenals and how we react to stress. Because of course, if we need to, run and get away from a stressful environment, then our bodies are going to need more glucose or glycogen. And so it stimulates adrenaline, which then releases the glycogen stores so that blood sugar rises. And if that also coincides with having a chocolate bar, then our insulin is going all over the place and everything's trying to keep everything steady, because the blood glucose level is really important to stay steady, and the body will do whatever it can to maintain that. So insulin is a hormone, as we said. It helps to reduce blood glucose by pushing it into your cells, and that's what it uses to burn to make ATP, our energy pockets, and we run on ATP. It's often said, oh, we run on glucose, but glucose has to be broken down, and each glucose cell, if you like, will pump out like 32 ATP pockets. So thankfully something we don't have to think about, because it's something that is being done automatically by our bodies, thank goodness. But when we get some symptoms of feeling tired, or so like the symptoms of elevated insulin might be that we might be hungry all the time. Even if we've eaten, we might feel hungry. We crave sugar and carbohydrates. We might have swollen ankles, puffy face, abdominal obesity, high blood pressure, even high triglycerides is also an important part of that. And polycystic ovary syndrome as well is often a contributing factor. So if we have, if you're looking at getting, if you have high insulin, or you may be thinking you might have high insulin, usually you're eating too many carbohydrates in your diet, a lot of processed foods. And so carbohydrates come from all sorts of different parts of our diet. Obviously, there's the obvious causes like a chocolate bar and soda drinks and things like that. But you'd be surprised at how many carbohydrates are in foods such as bread and pizza, even the lovely avocado, which is a great food to eat because it's got such nice fats in it, also has a few carbohydrates in it. Milk has carbohydrate. So, if you're eating a lot of, white goods, like you got your breads and your milks, cheeses, cheese not so bad, but pastas and things like that, they're all carbohydrate rich, and so that puts you at risk for maybe higher insulin, because every time you can ingest those, then you're going to see the insulin spiking and insulin rising. So if you have a sedentary lifestyle, that can also play a role, because exercise helps to burn off that energy. Stress, if you're constantly under stress, or maybe you're not eating, or if all you eat is, say, a couple of biscuits to get you through, then you've spiked your insulin as well. And then, of course, there's lack of nutrients. If you don't have a diet that covers the main essential nutrients that we have, chromium and magnesium may be depleted, and that may play a role in why you're more at risk of high insulin. So what we're going to do is we're going to test and see, but I want to talk to you first of all about the condition where you've eaten something, and then you don't kind of feel that you don't know that you're full. Your body just keeps eating and you don't really notice that. That could be a low thyroid issue, and it could be a sign of leptin resistance. So we're going to test Natasha for leptin, and we're also going to test her for insulin and see are those high. So if you want to pop up there, Natasha, that'd be great. So Natasha has been reducing her carbohydrates for the last week or so, and so we wanted to just have a look and see has it changed her risks, if you like, of having too much insulin. And so I'm going to just move this a little bit so you can see her there. And I'm going to go around to the side of the hip. And so hopefully you can see and hear me okay from where I am. So with kinesiology, we are very much about working with the root cause of a problem, looking to identify the root cause. So whether someone feels tired, sluggish, foggy thinking, you know, not as sharp as they once were, doesn't sleep well, any other niggling problems, we're looking at those symptoms, but we really want to find out what the root cause is underneath that. And so, so dietary factors are a big part. And as always, you know, we're going to be, in this demo, we're very much focusing in on the chemical side. Where, you know, obviously if someone has, you know, emotional attachments to food, that's something we would do. But for World Diabetes Day, that's what we're going to be concentrating on is she prone to leptin resistance, which then becomes, you know, not dealt with or not looked after, then becomes insulin resistance, which eventually then becomes diabetes. So we're looking at maybe 5-10 years down the line here. This is truly what preventative medicine is all about, being able to find out something that is a marker or a risk factor for developing something much further down the line. So as always, we use kinesiology, we use muscle testing to find out what's going on. So I'm just going to use a quadricep today. It's a nice, really strong muscle, and at least it doesn't tire very easily. All right, so you're pulling towards your shoulder and pull back. Great. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to see if it'll switch off. And we use a little sedation point here, or you acupuncturists watching. This is how we find that out. So again, pull back for me. Okay, so that makes it switch off, but just for a second. So pull back for me again. So we're back on strong again. Okay. So what's really interesting is the way that we can communicate with the body and find out what is going on for Natasha. So as I said, we can't go into everything that we would normally do in a session, but I want to give you a snapshot of how we can easily test what is an appropriate level for this client. Okay. And so whatever general guidelines there are out there, I noticed today that blood pressure has just been has just changed levels, so we need to include more people as having blood pressure issues. So those are generalized statistics and generalized guidelines, and that's great for the general health awareness. But in terms of individual healthcare, being able to find out what's right for you, then I find kinesiology and muscle testing is really perfect for being able to do that. So I have a big long test kit, all right, with lots of different test files in it. But I'm just going to take 2 of them to give you a demonstration of what we would do in clinic. So the first one I'm going to test her for was leptin. Remember I was talking about leptin as being kind of like the first stage. And so we're just going to put those directly onto the skin. And we know that this muscle is testing nice and strong. So we're going to see, does this have an impact on her energy, okay, on her unique energy of the body. So pull towards you. Okay. So that's nice and strong. So that's good. That's good from about 10 days ago she showed to that. So we'll talk about why that is now strong. And then we've got insulin. So I'm going to put that and just see how is her insulin levels at this moment in time. And pull back for me. And that's now going weak. So while leptin is better than it was, insulin is high for her at this moment in time. And so those, I'm going to explain a little bit about those, and I think that's everything for now. So you're free to go. Thank you, Natasha. It really helps to kind of demonstrate what it is we do by having a little demonstration. Okay, so leptin is, remember I mentioned about that feeling of feeling full, and when you're feeling full, but you feel like you were never full. All right, leptin kind of communicates with the hypothalamus and is regulating that. And so when leptin goes weak on a test, then we are like if you know when you're full, then you stop eating. But some people have an insatiable desire to eat, and that's maybe a sign of leptin resistance, or even low thyroid problems. So they just don't know when to switch off, and so that's a good one to test for when someone's looking to control their diet, control their weight, and also work with their diabetes if it's got that bad. So leptin too high. So nutrition wise, we'd be looking at magnesium, avoiding sugar, avoiding fruit and grains, maybe eating moderate protein, eating fat from really good sources like avocados, butter, coconuts. Avocado oil is brilliant. It has a high smoke point, so you can actually cook with it as well. Eat fiber, and also consider fasting, which is probably the most beneficial. So the reason I wanted to explain about what happened there that Natasha didn't show to leptin was when she did 10 days ago, is that she did a couple of days of fasting and has been to kind of reduce the glucose stores. That helps to reduce insulin as a side effect. And she has not been eating any, she's avoided all sugar, fruit and grains. And so we've already started to see how she's starting to improve her health from that biochemical level, because she's no longer showing to the leptin resistance. So that's a really great result. She's still showing to the insulin resistance, and that just shows you how these are not short, quick fixes. They're not like short-term strategies. They are very much about long-term strategies and being able to lead a sustainable health lifestyle. And so insulin, high insulin, if you are high insulin, it prevents fat burning. It impairs liver detoxification. It increases inflammation, and sometimes alongside that goes pain. And so the sorts of things that she could take would be magnesium, because that improves insulin sensitivity and also reduces insulin resistance. Magnesium is also good for constipation and good for energy levels and all of that. Magnesium's we're big fans of magnesium here in Kinesiologyzone. So there's definitely some things that she can do. And cinnamon, she could add cinnamon to her food, and that would help as well. But she is on this journey, so it's like 10 days in, making some changes, and we're starting to see the benefits of that. So how are we doing? Have we got some? We've got some questions, Gloria.
We've a couple of questions in here. Someone has mentioned when they get a slump normally in the afternoon, they feel sugar is the only way to lift their energy.
Yeah, and so let me just, can I read that out? Because we got these from Facebook, but if you have a question, if you're watching live, then do post your questions in the comments below, and we'll try and get to those as well. Because I've just noticed that we're about 12 minutes off from our usual time. So type 2 diabetes is very much about the signs and symptoms of type 2 diabetes would be increased thirst, increased hunger, especially after eating. So that's that question about mid-afternoon slump. I feel sugar is the best way to lift my energy. What can I do? It's the same kind of thing. It's increased hunger, especially after eating. Maybe you've had lunch, you've had something to eat, and yet you're still hungry. So it's, again, another symptom, another sign that maybe you need to have a look at actually how many carbohydrates you're consuming. So dry mouth is another, fatigue, visual blurring. If you're getting visual, I have astigmatism in my eyes for years, and so I do get blurring if I'm not wearing my glasses, but I'm sure you know what I mean. Is like sometimes your vision can be off a little bit. Headaches, recurrent infections, and slow wound healing. So when our blood sugars are high, our blood gets sticky, and so it can be hard for everything to be working properly, and the healing process is affected by that. Itchy skin, and obviously weight gain is a part of that. So getting tired in the mid-afternoon, avoid sugar, and this is where fasting is really good, because I know that I've shown you about some of the juice fasts that I've done in the past. Anything that kind of stops you with getting the taste of sugar. I find going cold turkey is the best advice. And so doing a strict fast for 24 hours, 48 hours. Some people do extended fasting, so don't be too scared. It may feel, oh, there's no way I could survive without food. Actually, it's a really good way of giving your body a rest, both your pancreas and your liver. Though your liver is dealing with, your body's still working, even though you are not eating something. But it definitely gives your pancreas a rest. And if you think about how much sugar we eat, sometimes for a lot of people, sugar is for breakfast. We have milk, which has sugar, and breakfast cereals, which is more sugar, toast, which is more sugar, and maybe a bit of butter, or even worse, processed, kind of margarine, and then jam on top. So we are being fueled by sugar from the get-go. What is a much better breakfast to have is something that has protein and a bit of fat in it. And so, scrambled eggs, smoked salmon, avocado. I mean, you could have a salad for breakfast if you want with, olive oil on it. It's only our culture that suggests that we have to have breakfast cereals and things like that. So, if you are having a symptom like an afternoon slump, well then that is a sign. It's a sign that your body is maybe struggling with the amount of carbohydrates. And the only way to really find out whether you're eating too much is to actually track them and just see. And I use an app on my phone called MyFitnessPal that you can plug in all the foods, and well worth, even if you're not even thinking about, if you just want to assess what foods you're eating, is track it for 2 or 3 days and see, just get a ballpark figure of how many carbohydrates, how many grams of fat, which are essential. Fats are essential. It's not all about, low fat has been touted as a healthy diet, but we are not, since I think probably the 60s and 70s, but we are not, as a culture, getting healthy. And in fact, chronic diseases are on the rise. Probably 1 in 4 of us have a chronic disease of some sort, whether that's diabetes, cancer, heart disease, obesity, all of these things, depression, things that chronic pain, all those things that are happening to us can be impacted by nutritional deficiencies, gut issues, high sugar, low fat diets. So increasing your fats to the good saturated fats, not as bad as it was touted to be, and of course our lovely essential fats like omega-3 oils and things like that. And so it's almost like you have to make a concerted effort to put those into your diet for long-term and a sustainable health. So if you are getting hungry, this is the whole thing about low fat diets, is that it's a nutrient dense food, which is also essential. Protein, usually we eat probably too much protein, but we don't have to worry necessarily about too little protein. But then the carbohydrates are also, like, a lot of people are trying low carb diets, but if it's low carb and low fat, I mean, it's just a recipe for starvation, and then we binge out and need to have something, because our body will do anything to get those cravings. And you go around the supermarket and you're like, oh my god, what can I have? So a much better approach is to look at low carbohydrate, really get real about how much carbohydrate you're consuming, and then medium protein, so not too much protein, because actually protein, if we have too much of it, will convert back into sugar, and so you'll get these insulin spikes. And then we need to readdress and really revisit this idea that fat is bad, that all fat is bad. And so if you see a low fat food, that must be healthy. I was looking at macadamia nuts because I'm following the ketogenic diet at the moment, exploring the high fat diet, and macadamia nuts are a fantastic high fat nut, but yet on their label they mention high fiber and not a word of high fat, and I think that's because they just think no one would buy them. But the tide is turning. A lot of people are looking at the ketogenic diet and moving from a glucose burner type of for our fuel and moving to a more fat-based ketone level. So if you're struggling with any kind of energy level issues, you're struggling with mid-afternoon slumps, just looking at the other questions, I struggle with sugar cravings. At the weekend I'd like a treat too, but how many? It all depends on how many you are consuming throughout the week. So I definitely recommend the MyFitnessPal as an app to track everything that you eat, just to get an idea. So let me just have a look. I want to show you a couple of books that I have. If you're looking for more information, it's always good to read from the experts. And so these are what I've been using. And the first book that I ever got was Why We Get Fat. Okay, this was the first book by Gary Taubes. And it was recommended to me last year. And basically, it was basically saying avoid carbohydrates and eat more fats, and certainly more protein if you're if you're not eating enough protein. Most people are, and you don't need as much as you might think. But that was the first book that I got. It was a very interesting book. This one, The Obesity Code, is by Jason Fung. Some of you may have heard of him before. He advocates about intermittent fasting, and that's what I said initially is like have a go at fasting, even for 24 hours. And what you could do is you could finish a meal on, say, on a Monday, or what today? Today's Tuesday. So 7 o'clock tonight, you decide, okay, I've had my last meal. I haven't eaten past 7 o'clock. And you go all the way through to the next day and you eat then at 7 o'clock, and that's done. You've done 24 hours, but you've spent, a good few of those asleep, hopefully. And then the other one, which I really like, is by Jimmy Moore, and this is about keto clarity. And again, looking very much about low carb, medium protein, and high fat as being a way in which to get your calories. So if you're going to go low carb and you understand about insulin spikes and you're, you are concerned about, these 226,000 people in Ireland who are currently diagnosed with diabetes, and probably the same number who haven't been diagnosed yet, then by going low carb and you got medium protein, or you got your protein levels, that's not enough calories. You have to get your calories from somewhere. And so it's only a short-term thing that you can sustain. Eventually your body will go, I need more energy. And so this is where we go, if we transfer it over to the good fats, so your omega-3 oils, then that's where you're going to get your calories. And what happens then is the body starts to change the good fats from your diet into the cells that are being holding on maybe to old fats and visceral fat and things like that, is that it starts to improve the quality of the quality of your oils in your body, I suppose. And so, but you need to eat quite a bit of oil and a bit of fats. It's quite an interesting perspective to just kind of understand what's going on. So there's a lot of science out there that backs up all of this information. If you want to explore more, then absolutely read those books. And again, loads of places on the web. So just to finish off then, our recommendations for reducing insulin. So remember, this was about type 2 diabetes. This is World Diabetes Day. We're doing this health show on a Tuesday rather than a Wednesday. We changed the topic because we discovered it was World Diabetes Day. And, what we need to, I suppose, address is that where do you go for help, with your diet? Because it can be hard to make changes. We might have all the information that we need to make changes. But then if we did, then no one would smoke and no one would be overweight and everyone would be fit. So there's lots of reasons to be able to do all these things. But behavioral changes take time, and they take support. And so with kinesiology, I think it's really great because we can look at what sorts of foods are you sensitive to? Where do we need to target? Is there an insulin problem? Is there going on with your gut? Working with your emotion is like your mindset around making these changes. And that's a really important part of it. And then also just improving digestion, improving our foods, improving how we feel, can all be done, can all be addressed and supported through kinesiology. So anyway, finally, to finish up, our Kinesiologyzone recommendations for reducing insulin would be to consider a 24 or 48-hour fast that gives your pancreas a rest, and both your pancreas a rest and depletes your glucose stores, so that then when you go onto a ketogenic diet, then you're it's looking for the energy, and it's going to go for those fat stores rather than obviously to keep, you want to not binge then on carbohydrates when you come back. Increase good fats in your diet. So this will also help your diet, your fuel of energy choice to be fat rather than glucose. Reduce your carbohydrates in general, but of course eliminate milk and grains and processed fats. Diabetes is caused by too much sugar, but also processed fats. So all those hydrogenated fats and kind of the good, bad, and the ugly fats. They're the ugly fats. Eliminate all fruit for a couple of weeks, and you can bring fruit back in after a couple of weeks, depending on where if your muscle testing shows you. But then you'd only have low sugar fruits such as berries, things like that. Eliminate artificial sweeteners, and then take appropriate supplements. Magnesium, vitamin D, we haven't had a chance to talk about, but vitamin D and K3 are also really important as part of insulin resistance. And we haven't got to talk about sugar addictions either. I know a lot of people feel they're sugar addicted. That's because it can stimulates the dopamine receptors, and repeated sugar binging, like if you have a lot of sugar in your diet or you gorge out on a lot of sugar, then it depletes or exhausts the dopamine receptors, and then you get a less emotional control, and then you feel like you need more, and it's just a continuous cycle. And so that's why I think cold turkey, while it may sound hard, it actually makes it easier in the long run. So you can have plenty of water and lemon. You can have even tea or coffee if you need to, but it's only 24 hours, and lots of people do it for charities and things like that, and so well worth considering. So have a think about your about how much fats. Don't be so scared of them. They're good for you, and they're essential. Our brain needs them. And I think, with so many chronic diseases, which are lifestyle related, these are non-communicable diseases, they're all centered around what we're doing every day. And so it's no harm to just have a look and see, actually, what am I eating every day, and having a go at just giving that bit of a check. So how are we getting on? Have we got
that's about it.
Okay,
yeah,
so our December health show is going to be on Wednesday. What is it?
On Wednesday, the 6th of December.
Wednesday, the 6th of December. And we're going to do a preparing for Christmas. We don't know yet what that means in terms of whether it's not going to be a cooking show or anything like that, but it's going to be kind of like things we can do to make Christmas, which can be stressful for a lot of people, as stress-free as possible. So I hope you've enjoyed today's show, and I look forward to seeing you next month.